Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are keeping calm. We are staying local. And I'm going to go over to Essex right now and welcome in one of our newer sponsors, and but not really like that. I have known Mark Miller since the first day of 7th grade in 1979. I think our first arguments were about North Carolina State, and Duke, and Virginia, and I don't know, Lee Raker and Jeff Lamp and Ralph Sampson. Mark Miller has been involved with a law firm as long as I can remember, from the time we were young people at Blondell Miller. Injury lawyers on Eastern Avenue, 628 Eastern Avenue. Now Blondell, Miller, and Scheuler. And, you know, the weird part about this Todd Scheuler is, a former delegate Todd Scheuler, is that Mark is my lifer friend, but he's more the, if you guys were a comedy act, I guess you guys would be like the one where the one guy talks and the one where the other guy does it, Penn and Teller, right? Like that, right?
Yeah. Mark's the straight man, He's the he's the square of the two. I'm more like the face of the franchise, I like to think.
I would think that I could talk history of sports with Mark Miller all night if he chose to do that, especially basketball, right? If he chose to do that with me.
Oh, absolutely. No, Mark is a wealth of. He's very charismatic and a good guy. I'm just giving him a hard time, but he
charismatic. He is charismatic.
I was at right before everything shut down. I was at the last Maryland game, the Maryland-Michigan game, and Mark pulled out. I was lamenting the fact that Ralph Trojan didn't play the seniors. He actually got. There was Anthony Cowan, and there's two other guys. I mean, it's not like a huge bench of them. And Mark said, "Oh, he's the opposite of Lefty." And Mark was able to pull the story of Lefty Driesell playing his sophomore son for a last shot of
Chuck.
the game.
Yeah, Chucky.
Yeah.
And everybody yelled,
Michael
shoot,
Jordan.
shoot, shoot at him. Yes.
Right.
It's true.
Right. So,
did he tell you the part where they threw the
that
condoms at Herman Veal, or did that not come up?
That one didn't come up.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, they I go back to Adrian Branch. I mean, all of those guys. I mean, that was our childhood. Matter of fact, our friend John Raffalidis put up a something that was ACC basketball related a couple of months ago. It was 5-6 weeks ago, and I found the old Toyota ACC handbook guide from 1979, 80, 81. I think it had Buck Williams and I'm trying to think, one of the, I'm trying to think, one of the North Carolina guys on the cover, and I found the actual, copy of it. You could buy it for $8 on eBay or whatever. And I was like, wow, man, I haven't seen that thing in 40 years. And I had it. It was way more important than my science book, my social studies book, my math book. It was in school all day. I remember my science teacher wanted to borrow it. So, basketball's been in our lives. We're East Side guys. And, dude, from your law practice and everything that's gone on in courts and what this coronavirus, I remember when I was just mad about Pearl Jam 2 weeks ago. And then I was like, well, they're going to play basketball, but no one will go, and that'll be okay because we can still fill out brackets. Now I am not only not going to New York to see the Sweet 16 this weekend, not only not going to see Pearl Jam, I'm filling out Bruce Springsteen song brackets on Twitter, dude. It's we have had a real rocking to our lives here the last a week to 10 days. And, man, everybody's searching for something. I know you were, all kidding aside, and we could sit here and talk Rolling Stones and basketball and old Mark Miller stories, but, man, people are really hurting in a way that they've never hurt before, and everybody's looking for a friend, some advice, legal advice, bankruptcy, how do I pay my bills? There's just a lot of uncertainty right now, and having someone you trust around you is really important, right, Todd?
Well, absolutely. And, from a legal advice standpoint, without a firm, every consultation is free. You got to pick up the phone and call. So there's a limit to what we do. We are an injury law firm, which basically means that we handle workers' compensation cases, we handle auto accidents and the like. But certainly we field calls all day from people who just can't figure out how to get the jar unstuck. And oftentimes we can get you pointed in the right direction. So your problem, you might not even identify it as a legal problem, but, if you call in, you certainly would have the opportunity to talk to either me or Mark. And, 99 times out of 100, we're at least going to be able to point you in the right direction. Or maybe there's a law firm that we work with that handles your situation, or, Maybe your problem is not a legal problem, but it requires, X, Y, or Z. Maybe you need to contact a local politician because, you can get something unjammed politically or something.
Todd Scheuler joining us here from the injury lawyers of Blondell Miller Scheuler, 410-687-7878. All right, in the early going here, you sort of first thoughts for everyone when they lose a job, when they have these kinds of struggles and calling their bank and calling their credit card. But what happens for people involved in any sort of litigation, any sort of wherever you are, your whole office? Is everything sort of stuck right now, at least for a little while? Or are there things that actually can be getting done, like sort of the duck moving the legs under the water, at least in the short term for business, as far as law goes and as far as people sort of, as I would say, caught up in the system somewhere, anywhere?
Well, the courts are closed, but the people in the courts are working, and the people at insurance companies are working. So we are able to move the ball forward a little bit every day. Now, our phones aren't ringing like they normally do, but people, for instance, settled a case a couple of weeks ago, and that settlement of a case is a process, and people have to sign different paperwork and the like. We're able to get that out and, get those people. It's actually, it's somewhat of a relief to be able to get somebody a chunk of money. I mean, now is such a great time. Maybe you have that auto case a while back and you're getting your medical bills paid, but, you're hoping to get a little jolt of cash for something fun. Well, now you may be getting a little jolt of cash because you need it, because you got laid off. And the two aren't related, but the timing sure is nice. So if we're able to wrap things up, we're able to, frankly, in a busy law practice, going to court every day, there are things that are always sitting around that want to get written, that want to get drafted, and it's kind of presented at least a little bit of an opportunity to catch our breath and, catch up on some of the things that pile up in the course of the normal business.
For you, and seeing the streets like this, just as a citizen, as someone that has served in won and lost elections, we've got an election that's been moved out 5-6 weeks now. We've had all those folks on. I've had Johnny O on this week in Health and Human Services. And this is where the political part of the conversation really comes in. I mean, we've had the libertarian types, and people say we don't want government, we don't need government. What good is government? Government lies, government steals, all these things. And then yet, when times like this come, everyone really does need the government, right?
Yeah, I mean, the government is our best. The United States government is, and this is a little political, but it's the greatest weapon for good that can ever be used. I mean, it's a powerful entity that we have vested with the ability to regulate our food and control airspace and do all kinds of things. And yes, eradicate and treat disease. So, and ditto, we have these state governments that have certainly sprung into action, and we have private sector businesses that have sprung into action and done wonderful things and continue to do wonderful things. And so, yeah, we need the government. I mean, I think it's strange, the stimulus, how in vogue socialism has become. 3 weeks ago it was a dirty word. Now everybody wants to get a hold of those $1,200 checks. So,
I haven't seen Bernie Sanders in 3 weeks, right? And we haven't seen a whole lot of Joe Biden, but Bernie Sanders got to be shaking his head. Elizabeth Warren's got to be shaking her head, right?
It's going to be wild. I mean, those that have been running on that message for that long have to be. The government's going to chuckle.
Well, nobody wants a safety net until they have it, right? Nobody cares who their insurance agent is or what their deductible is until they need it, right? No one cares what their health insurance is until they like my wife 6 years ago, you've got leukemia. Oh, I hope I have insurance, right?
Mark Miller always says his favorite expression is "until it happens to me," and we're all guilty of it. I mean, we all feel the same way. I've always in my political world, rallied. I was always a labor guy, a union guy, and this and that. Well, now I own a business, and people aren't here. Not everything's getting done exactly, and here I am until it happens to me. I never really thought about it from a different perspective. But
well, this is giving everybody a different perspective, right? We're all having to take the perspective of friends and neighbors who are at risk, right? And we all have to sacrifice whatever it is we like, whether it's opening day, whether it's a beer at the bar, whether it's a day at the ballpark, or whether it's a basketball game, a concert, a night out. I mean, our friends, our family. I mean, we're 2 weeks into this. The other day, I just put up on Facebook, like, who's the first person you're going to hug when you get a chance to hug somebody? You know what I mean? Like, well, I don't even know who that's going to be, but who are you going to hug? Who do you miss hugging? Who do you miss, like, literally hanging out and having a conversation and a beer with? Who's the first person you're reaching to see on FaceTime that sort of gives you that little thing that gets you through a day that makes you feel better after you talk to them for 5 minutes, right?
Yeah, but isn't the different perspective the greatest opportunity of all of this? Right? Like, we're forced into
growth,
living differently. We're forced to slow down. We're forced to communicate differently. We're forced, and it's an opportunity, really. I mean, I think some of these, I have small kids, and I think some of these parents are a little over the top with we got to teach a new skill every week. So, I'm of the school of parenting that this is the opportunity to lower our standards for a little bit, but no, I mean, it's forced me into time with my children. It's forced me into time with my wife. It's forced me. I sat outside, on the most recent of nice days and watched bees. Like there's bumblebees rumbling around. Like I don't know that in my normal busy life I have a lot of opportunity to sit and watch the bees, but when you got nothing else on TV, you go watch bees, and maybe you
read a book.
Yeah, maybe you read a book. Maybe you listen to an album you haven't listened to in a while, or reshuffle your old Snapfish pictures into a new album. Whatever we got to do, we're doing. It's a new perspective, and I think we're going to all be better for it.
Todd Scheuler here from Blondell Miller Scheuler. Tell me what you guys do. Give the elevator speech on what injury lawyers do these days. And I'll say this. One of the reasons they don't want us on the road is they don't want us having accidents out on the road, having ambulance and police and folks like you getting phone calls, quite frankly. That's part of the whole shutdown thing, is to keep everyone safe. Put away the sharp knives around the house and use, cut things with a spoon if you can. Just keep yourself out of harm's way here while we take care of people during the middle of a global pandemic.
No, absolutely. And, that is it. I mean, we are, when you're injured at work, there are a certain sachet of benefits that you're entitled to. And your employer pays insurance every month for you to be entitled to those benefits. And, their time off of work benefits, their medical bill benefits, and there's money benefits beyond that. Money's for any permanent injury that you're left with. And you need a lawyer to collect those. It's a process, and not a lot of lawyers understand workers' compensation. Now, similarly, if you're hurt in a car, but you can be hurt in a construction accident, you can be hurt from medical negligence. There's a million things that you could be injured from. And the path forward to be compensated is not one that you want to walk alone. A lot of insurance companies want to settle with people before they get a hold of a lawyer because they know that they can get off on the cheap and deprive people, frankly, of the money benefits that they would otherwise be entitled to. The money benefits that they pay for every month when you pay your car insurance. It's not it's a system. Again, think back, we're talking about government and the way that works. Well, we spread risk around with our insurance system. So every month I pay my car insurance and you pay your car insurance, and everybody in America pays their car insurance, so that when one of us gets hurt, there's a pool of money to pay for the medical treatment, to pay for the permanent injuries that you might be left with. And that's essentially what we do.
Todd, always a pleasure to check in with you, my man. I wish we were watching basketball and arguing about whether the Orioles were going to lose 99 or 101 games. As I've said many times, they figured out a way to not lose 100. They're just not going to play as many. But in the meantime, keep the faith, brother, and keep the law firm going. We're going to try to keep it going here and stay safe. And I'm telling everybody, wash your hands, okay? Just do that for me.
All right, thanks, Nestor. Todd
Scheuler from Blondell Miller and Scheuler doing all sorts of things that are good in Essex. You can find them at 628 Eastern Boulevard. Give them a call, 410-687-7878. They're there to help you and to help you through. And at some point, I'll get my lifelong friend Mark Miller on. And I think the part of the straight man is he'll pretend we're not lifelong friends. He'll say, no, man, you walked in my office in Essex last week. Nasty at WNST.net, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. We are trying to keep the faith around here. We're keeping our hands clean. I'm washing my hands a whole lot and keeping calm, staying local, and staying Baltimore positive.